Just as Ayn Rand stated that Immanuel Kant was basically the one responsible for the false ideology of altruism at all costs, I would like to say FranzBoas is single-handedly the guy that has destroyed anthropology, sociology, and all forms of social science, creating social science that's not science at all. And he is also responsible for destroying psychology. But before I get into FranzBoas, I want to get into a little bit of reverse Boasian anthropology by a gentleman by the name of Neil deGrasse Tyson. People might know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, the science guy from Nova. Now, he says about Barack Obama, okay, he's exactly half white, so he's making a cut at Barack Obama. The interview show run by Vladimir blah 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 interviewed with astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, ranging from innocuous topics as thoughts on early hip-hop, okay, to more salient ones. He doesn't want to be called a black scientist, just a scientist. Yes, that's what I would call him, but yet he keeps pushing these racial issues. Do you understand what I'm saying? A scientist is a scientist, okay? Yes, there's people that are scientists that are Arab, that are Jewish, that are Indian, that are Pakistani, that are Brazilian, that are Amerindian, that are Asian, that are, what have you. But they're just scientists. Science is a field, okay? And there's many subfields in the scientific community. I have long stated that truth has no, facts, they don't have a race. If a black guy says something that's true, it's true. If a white guy says something that's true, it's true. If a Jewish guy says something that's true, it's true. If an Arab guy says something that's true, it's true. If a Chinese guy says something that's true, it's true. And those that think any differently are retarding their own growth as a human being, because they are not recognizing that truth is truth regardless of the source. Okay? People say consider the source. I say consider the truth. Does what the person's saying weigh up to objective reality? Does it? Is it observably true? Is it? Okay, well, let's see what Neil deGrasse Tyson explains. Tyson explains why white people look more like monkeys than black people. That's always a great way to start off a conversation from the scientist that doesn't want to be considered a black scientist, and uses President Barack Obama as an example. Yes, because let's talk about Barack Obama, the first black president, and actually he probably wasn't if we're using that, because Abraham Lincoln was Melungian. Melungians are black, Native American, and white, and there are most likely other presidents that have had some black blood in them that are not that were not exactly 100% honest. There's definitely Native Americans that probably had some Native American in them. So Vlad starts off the segment like this. I know you did an interview recently about the racist things people have said about black people, blah, blah, blah. He said, but you said you scientifically look at white people? White people are hairy, and white people are the hairiest people? Now, technically, if he wants to talk, I believe the hairiest people maybe, and I'm not making a statement to be funny, and I love Persian girls. So let's get this out of the way. But I believe Persians are. Now, technically, are Persians quote-unquote white? No, but they are Caucasoid. They are what are called Aryans. In fact, that's where the word Iranian comes from, is Aryan. Okay? So he's saying that, whites are the hairiest people on earth. Okay? That's what he's saying. Okay? Tyson, now what's funny is gorillas don't really have hairy chests, though. Tyson said, completing the thought and laughing, Vlad, who is white, admits, I'm really hairy. Tyson then displays his very not hairy arms. I don't shave at all, he explains. Some white people have hair on from chest to neck. Okay, how is this not a racist comment when you compare it to other things that other people have said, like Jimmy the Greek? Okay, people don't know who Jimmy the Greek is, look it up. These were highly overlooked similarities, Tyson said. So he's supporting the concept of comparing people to non-human primates. And I agree with him on that. But all people. Hell, I just did a whole video series on the dietary wisdom of the great apes because of how much like us apes are. We are great apes. Tyson explains that 19th century anthropology, the most racist period in the most racist branch of science there ever was. Okay. When you start I would say the most racist branch of science, honestly, is medicine, but only because of psychiatry. When you start categorizing and ranking people, he said, you're going to rank yourself at the top. That's not true. That's not true. Okay? And the thing is, what the Third Reich did was not authentic anthropology. There was a healthy mix of mysticism, magic, and occultism in what the Nazis did. Okay? So stop trying to call what the National Socialist Party did anthropology or eugenics. It was not. It was Dungeons and Dragons with an infusion of science. Now, I'm going to move on here. So, the question is race real? Long-standing orthodoxy amongst social scientists holds that human races are a social construct, blah, 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 blah. Wealth of data has made it clear that these two positions never at all. So, but you have to understand, from a human evolutionary standpoint, and a biological standpoint, we come to different conclusions. So in the decades since the decoding of the human genome, a growing wealth of data has made clear that these two positions, never at all likely to begin with, are simply correct. There is indeed a biological basis for race. Okay, and it is now beyond. Now, why am I saying this? Because when I get into FranzBoas, you're going to see why this is important. Because he is the one responsible for why social scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and everybody on the fringe of pseudoscience, which is what these branches of science have become, pseudoscience, believes that it doesn't exist. Even anthropologists are now saying race is a social construct. Anthropologists that can determine what race a person is by their teeth, by their bones, etc. It's sad. There is indeed a biological basis for race. New analysis of the human genome has established that human evolution has been recent. Now, this does not mean that any group of people is superior or inferior to any other group of people. That's a subjective statement. Biologists scanning the genome for evidence of natural selection have detected signals of many genes that have been favored by natural selection in the recent evolutionary past. No less than 14% of the human genome, according to one estimate, has changed under this recent evolutionary pressure. Now remember, we're less than 1%. I think we're like 3% different from a chimpanzee. And now I would have to look that up, but we're we're closer to chimpanzees than we are to other humans. Okay, keep that in mind. All humans are closer to chimpanzees, our closest non-human primate relative, than we are to other groups of humans, genetically speaking. Analysis, now by that I don't mean that we're genetically closer in the sense, but the difference is greater. Analysis of genomes from around the world established that there is biological basis for race, despite the official statements to the contrary of leading social science organizations, an illustration of the point, in fact, that with mixed race populations such as African Americans, which is funny because with mixed race folks, such as African Americans, Neil deGrasse Tyson is most likely of mixed race, just like Barack Obama is. Geneticists can now track along an individual's genome. And this is what's funny. As somebody that is most likely, I have to get a genomic test. I haven't gotten it yet. I need to get an ancestry test. I just don't have the disposable income. But I will guarantee the public that I'm part black because of my Brazilian ancestry. I will guarantee. Now, what percentage, I don't know. Okay? But I will guarantee I am. I just have to get the test. And then I'll be saying things like bang, bang, skeet, skeet. Okay, and assign each segment to an African or European ancestor, an exercise that would be impossible if race did not have some basis in biology. So keep that in mind. How could you do ancestry tests if race didn't exist? Racism and discrimination are wrong, yes, as a matter of principle, not of science. So you should treat people with respect and dignity regardless of what race they are. Everyone should treat people with respect and dignity. Even people of other races that might not be white should treat other people of other races with respect and dignity, which is something that is very much forgotten. That said, it is hard to see anything in the new understanding of race that gives ammunition to racists. Exactly. This is what I've been telling people. What de-racist me was my study of biological anthropology. And I don't think that hiding this is a good thing. I don't think that keeping people from knowing this is a good thing. I think, if anything, understanding biological anthropology, human migrations, etc., helps people to understand race, the biological basis of race, and diffuse a lot of racism. Okay? That's what I think. But, who am I? I'm just a layman. Exploration of the genome has shown that all humans, whatever their race, share the same set of genes. Each gene exists in a variety of alternative forms known as alleles. So one might suppose that races have distinguishing alleles, but even this is not the case. Genetics and social behavior. This is, okay, human evolution has not only been recent, extensive, blah, 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 East Asia, okay, and I agree with this. I'm not going to get too into this because this might get me in trouble if I start going into that, but you can read this on your own. There's differences in behavior, differences in metabolism, differences in other things like right here, but I'm not going to get too into that right now. But I am going to get into the fact that denying that there is a biological basis for race is unscientific. Okay? But what Neil deGrasse Tyson did in the beginning of this video is racist. Now, I'm not starting with FranzBoas. I'm starting with the basis that FranzBoas says does not exist. And this is what's important to understand. Most mixed dentition space analyses were developed by using subjects of Northwestern European descent and unspecified sex. That's a bad idea. So people that are saying that race and gender do not exist are not being scientific. A total of 120 subjects, 30 male and 30 female, 30 males and 30 females in each ethnic group. Okay, so in each ethnic group, each of the four ethnic groups, each of the four main ethnic groups, all subjects were less than 21 years of age, results in maxillary arch, blah, 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 blah. Conclusions: the Tanaka-Johnston analysis significantly overestimated in females, blah, 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 blah. Okay, because of its simplicity, researchers have investigated the accuracy of the Tanaka-Johnston experiment in various ethnic groups, yada, yada, yada. Tooth size has been shown to have strong association with both sex and ethnicity. Males have, this is what you need to understand, men have consistently larger teeth than females. whereas people of African descent have larger mesiodistal tooth dimensions than do people of European descent, okay? Found that the mesodistal widths in Dominican American sample were similar to Black American values. Because this is what happens when, see, people, when there's a spectrum of race, okay? But it doesn't mean it's not real. All statistical analysis, yada, yada, yada. Results. Intra-class correlation coefficients, da, 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 da. You can read this on your own if you'd like. My point is that people like FranzBoas that are saying that these things did not exist, that destroyed the concept of human beings as an animal, we are a great ape, has set back social science and medical science by literally thousands of years. Literally. Because you're operating with a pseudo-religious notion that human beings are some kind of magical being. And they're not. What makes human beings amazing is not magic. It's biology. Our biology is what makes us magnificent creatures. Okay? It is not. It's the biology of our brains, of our nervous systems, of our hands, our anatomy. This is what has allowed humanity to become, as far as we know, the most advanced life forms in the universe. It's not magic, it's science. Biology is the study of life, how our understanding of science, of nature, of the nature of evolution, living systems, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is about the extension of biology through culture. The differences in biology do correlate to culture. I'm not going to get too into this because I don't want my video getting taken down. But biology does extend through culture. We used to know that before FranzBoas. Now, I have stated for a long time that I agree with the concepts expressed by Jose Vasconcelos in the book The Cosmic Race, despite the fact that I am not exactly in agreement with his assertions and such. But the idea that Americans are different, whether you're a United States of America American or a Chilean American, Americans are different than our colonial European ancestors, and it has to do with Americans, with U.S. Americans. It's primarily due to sexual selection and geographic separation, but with our Pan-American friends, our friends from south of the border, it also has to do with racial mixing. This also has to do with this in the U.S. population. Okay, and this is where things like genomic testing come in. U.S. whites do have black blood. U.S. whites do have Native American blood. Okay, we have the genes, but we don't know that until we get tested. Okay, we are a biologically distinct group of people from our European ancestors for a couple reasons. Number one is the fact that we're from all over Europe, okay, from Italy, from Spain, from Great Britain primarily, from Germany primarily, okay, from the Hungarian, like Germanic areas primarily, but we are from all over Europe. But there was also a distinct sexual selection. This is why Afrikaners are distinct, why Zimbabweans are distinct from their colonial ancestors, is because sexual selection is how people choose mates. Whereas in Great Britain, perhaps a dandy was the ideal man. In America, a farmer, a pioneer, a soldier, somebody with a little bit more oomph in them was sexually selected for by the women. And the women were also hardier. Okay? So sexual selection is a biological way of life. Now the thing is, this is also true in Europe. Bavarians are different from Viennese because of sexual selection. They're genetically the same race of people, but they are different because of sexual selection. Okay? Now, then, not so much anymore, but when there was geographic isolation, more geographic isolation, they were more distinct. Okay? And, for example, Hungarians have a lot of Mongol DNA in them. Okay? And that has to do with Attila the Hun. Okay? So, what you have to understand is sexual selection in humans concerns the concept of sexual selection introduced by Charles Darwin as it affects humans. Sexual selection is a biological way one sex chooses a mate for the best reproductive success. Sexual selection is a biological way one sex chooses a mate for the best reproductive success. Okay, the role of sexual selection in human evolution has not been firmly established. That's a load of nonsense, but let's go into the general hypothesis. Some hypotheses about the evolution of the human brain argue that it is a sexually selected trait. We like smart people. Smart people like other smart people. Okay? Smart people want to have smart kids. As it would not, but they're saying that the human brain argue that it is a sexually selected for trait as it would not confer enough fitness itself to its high maintenance costs of energy and whatnot. Well, it does when you can outsmart your prey, or you can outsmart and you can build civilizations. It is our biology that we have used our wills, our ancestors used their wills to sexually select for big, juicy brains that would help us create human civilization that makes us different. So sexual selection's role in human evolution cannot be definitively established, as features may result. If it can't be definitively established, ask somebody at Mensa. For an equilibrium among competitive selective pressures, some involving sexual selection, others natural selection, and others pleiotropy. Richard Dawkins argued, when you notice a characteristic of an animal and ask what its Darwinian survival value is, you may be asking the wrong question. I agree with him. It could be that characteristic that you have picked out is not one that matters in that sense. It may have come along for the ride. Also, it might have been sexually selected for. Darwin's sexual selection hypothesis. Charles Darwin. See, the thing is, things that because people have this, we have non-natural desires, and I think that's not necessarily a good thing, because I agree with New England transcendentalism, and I think we need to get our minds closer to nature. Okay, but so what you have to understand is we have sexual desires and sexual selection that is not necessarily in correlation with natural law. But Darwin's sexual selection, Charles Darwin describes sexual selection as depending on the advantage which certain individuals have over others of the same sex and species solely in respect to reproduction. Darwin noted that sexual selection is of two kinds and concluded that both kinds have operated on humans. And it's true, both kinds have operated on humans. The sexual struggle is of two kinds in that one it is between the individuals of the same sex, generally the male sex, in order to drive away or kill their rivals, the females remaining passive whilst in the other. The struggle is likewise between the individuals of the same sex in order to excite or charm those of the opposite sex. Generally, the females, which no longer remain passive, but select the more agreeable partners. Now, why you see a sissification of people is because the world has accepted this idea that men no longer need to be strong and masculine, and women over the past couple generations have been sexually selecting for effeminate men which are producing effeminate children. And all factors pertain to this, social, biological, etc., is what affects the phenotype. But that is why people are like, it's the plastics in the water, it's this, it's that. It might be the plastics in the water, but I doubt it. It's crappy diet. It's it's a lack of nutrients, and it's the fact that women are favoring this sexual dimorphism. And this is the thing, we used to select men that looked like men and women that looked like women, and now androgyny is more or less being selected for sexual anatomy. You can read this on your own. I'm actually going to end this video, and I'm going to start later. Well, hold on one second here. So in my next video, I'm going to talk about the purpose of aesthetics and sexual selection. That'll be the purpose of the next video, and it will go into other things too, but it will begin with the purpose of aesthetics and the role of aesthetics in sexual selection, as noted by Jose Vasconcelos in The Cosmic Race. Okay.